Hello and welcome to my course on Economics for Business. This is module number 6 and it's about creating and interpreting a graph in the context of your business and in the context of your business problem. So linking back to some earlier modules, in module 1 we went through, what is a business research question, and we went through a framework of how to develop a business research question for your unique problem. And then in module 4 I introduced you to kind of a number of data sources as well as a number of data points that we're often interested in economics. And we went through kind of how these data points just defined and how are they constructed. And then in module 5 we kind of joined those two things together and we said, well, we know what data is available and we know what our needs are. What sort of a framework can we use to kind of mesh these two things together and find the data that we need for our business research question? So this module is kind of about taking what we've learned so far and then kind of putting a bit of a bow on it, I guess. This is about kind of ending that process. We've got the data, or we've identified the data at least, and we know what our problem is. We've meshed those two things together. So now let's do something with the data, and then let's communicate what it means, I guess. So I want to take you through a process I use to create a simple line graph from data in Excel. And then I want to take you through how I understand a good way to communicate clearly what your graph means, putting a lot of focus on the context of your business research question and the context of your business, because that's important. So if you've got your own business research question, use that. But if you'll remember in module 1, we're still following this business research question from the case study. And I've got the case study linked on the bottom of the course page. So if you remember Reggie's business problem, if you remember, he wanted to increase beer production by leasing a new facility, and to do so he was a bit disappointed that his forecasts for cash flows weren't very certain. There was a lot of uncertainty in his cash flow forecasts, and we deduced that that was probably because barley prices had increased in price rapidly and then decreased in price rapidly over the past couple of years. And so Reggie's forecast of his barley prices was hard to get a handle on, right? If barley prices are increasing fast, or if they're increasing in a large amount, either fast or randomly, I guess, there's a lot more uncertainty in whatever forecast Reggie was making. So we just asked, what will be the average rate of change in barley prices in the USA over the next 5 years? So let's make a graph of the US barley prices. So if you remember, we download the data from the Federal Reserve economic data, the Federal Reserve at St. Louis, and you come into the producer price indices by commodities, look for barley. We've already searched it up and we already had the page open from the last module. So just make it for 10 years and make sure the dates line up. So it's October 2014 to October 2024, and that's going to be the latest data. Within the next few weeks, the November data point will be released, probably somewhere around the middle of the month. So we download that, go Excel, and we save that. Great, that saves. And then open that up. Okay, go enable editing. Okay, and then now we're working in Microsoft Excel, and you should be familiar with this program. If you're not, I encourage you to seek some courses on YouTube or use ChatGPT to help you figure out how to use Excel. The focus of this course isn't really on how to use Excel. My focus is on quickly how you might use it to create a quick line graph if you already have some of the skills to use it. So for me, I always put a large focus on data hygiene, and so I want to keep this raw data as kind of pristine as I can. I don't want to delete any rows, I don't want to do any manipulation to this data yet. So what I want to do is I'll just rename the page as raw, and then create a new page and call that graph data. And then we want the date and we want the barley price index. And then to get the data, I'll just use an equal sign, equals that, drag it across, and then I need to drag this down around to 124-ish, somewhere around here maybe. Cool. And then we will turn this this column into a date and just make sure we have everything. So we've got October 2014 down to October 2024. Great. All the numbers they look reasonable. So we just highlight all the data, go to insert, and insert a line graph. And I've got kind of the default line graph format to be somewhere around what I like to look at. Aptos for the text, and I like this blue, it's nice. Okay, so that's how you create a graph in Excel of the data that you actually want to use. We've just been through a process where we find the data that we wanted, downloaded it, and make a graph using the data we want. So now, how do we go about kind of interpreting the data in the context of our business research question, and in the context of our business in general? Well, I have a framework, and the framework is linked at the bottom of the course page. But my framework basically boils down to what is the shape, what is the trend, and then given those two factors, kind of what is the future and what is the context? How do we make sense of what we've just seen? And I want you to keep in mind, what is your business research question? And also keep in mind your business context. What's your overall objective, which you should have got from the process of digging out your business research question? What constraints do you face? Who are your customers? Who are your customers' customers? Who are your suppliers? Who are your suppliers that you don't buy from but that you probably could? So what is your supplier web? And kind of all these different factors in business that we often can't put words to. What is your context in general? So the first kind of factor I like to go through is what is just the general shape of the data? Is there a trend? Are there periods when it's increasing rapidly? Are there periods when it's decreasing rapidly? What's happening? So kind of for me, for the barley data, the highest point of the graph is somewhere around 2022, middle of 2022, and the lowest point in the graph is around 2017, which goes down to around 139. There's also a low point which is almost equal to that, which is around about in August 2024. So the general shape for me says that barley prices like to range between this observation of, I think this is around 220 down to sort of 140 as an index. They like to range within those two kind of broad numbers, and that is quite a wide range really when you think about it. That's a range of around actually 100%. The prices either almost double or they kind of almost halve every couple of years, but it is still a reasonably tight range, especially for a commodity. And we see that kind of, in 2020, that kind of ranging structure, I guess, failed. And then kind of after it failed on the upside, it kind of returned back to that range. And that's kind of interesting for our forecast later. So then we want to talk about, what are the trends within this data? And we have kind of micro trends. So in the data from 2015 down to 2017, there's a slight downtrend, and then there's a slight uptrend going up to 2020, and then there's an explosive uptrend. So what might have caused this explosive uptrend? Well, we kind of know what happened in 2020. There was the COVID pandemic and the global response to the COVID pandemic, and that caused a severe drought of shipping containers, essentially. So all around the world, commodity prices exploded in pretty much every commodity. If you're interested, you can look at the FAO data, and it's available online. That tracks the data of all commodities, and they all show a similar pattern, where in sort of late 2020, early 2021, the prices increase really rapidly and stay elevated for kind of 6 to 12 months. It was from kind of mid-2021 to kind of maybe late 2022 when they started to decrease again. But you can also see that there's kind of periods of stability too. So in the periods before 2020, the price, I've said before, it kind of ranges, but really kind of broadly, this is pretty stable. And I guess we can never, in economics, we have this rule, which is that you never reason from a price change. But then equally, you also never reason from a price stability either. So it can't always be that you reason from what the graph tells you. You have to kind of think, what is the context first? And then does the graph show some sort of shape that's consistent with that context? So what might be the future? Well, looking at this graph again, what do we think of for the next 5 years? well, what's been the trend for the last 5 years? And I've just drawn a line on the graph. I didn't use a ruler, so it's not straight. But it is a very, very slightly gradually increasing line from sort of October 2019 to October 2024. And kind of, if we say, barley prices range within that kind of 200 whatever range, then we might say that, well, the data point in 2024 is kind of in the middle of that range. And so we might expect that over the next 5 years, the price might gradually grow upwards to the top of the range and then gradually decrease again. And overall, that should be a reasonably calm, gradual increase. So, given that forecast, and that's the forecast that I presented to you in the last module as well, where I kind of calculated that kind of explicitly, given that forecast, how might that affect Reggie's decision? So if you remember, Reggie's decision was, if I see my cash flows are less uncertain, then I'm going to press the big green button and I'm going to get a new facility and some more beer producing machinery, and I'm going to produce more awesome beer. And if I see that my cash flows will be a bit more uncertain, well, I might not press that big green button and I might not invest. But we kind of know that, if there is going to be a steady increase, it's not going to be fast. There's not going to be a lot of what's called variance. It's not going to go up rapidly and then down rapidly again, unless something, a black swan event happens again. But we can assume they won't. Then, in the context of Reggie's question, he should be pressing that big green button, right? Because this cash flow forecast is pretty certain. Or at least it's a lot less uncertain than it could be. So that's kind of my process and my framework of how to think through kind of the very beginnings, I guess, of analysing your business research question. And you can go a lot deeper, and we will go deeper in future courses. But for now, I want to challenge you with something. I want you to think about this, and I want you to post it in the community forums, and we'll give feedback to each other, and we'll see what different ideas people can come up with. Be as creative as you want. This is for fun. So how would you forecast the rate of change in barley prices? And importantly, given your forecasts, what assumptions would you need to make in order to make each of those forecasts kind of reasonable? So for myself, I have kind of 3 ways. They are the simple way, which I've been through in just the end of last module and this module, which would be to average the rate of change for the last 5 years and then extrapolate it. And then I could come up with a complex way, which would be an ARIMA model. And an even more complex way, which would be way overboard for this sort of project, would be to fit a vector error correction model. And then for these models, the assumptions I'd need to make, for the simple model, it's really, the future is going to look like the past. And then for the complex and the overboard model, let's not cover that. That might be in some future modules or future courses. So kind of in summary, we've looked at we've kind of summarised some of the important modules that link into this module. And then we've decided, well, we know what data we want. We know our problem. We've kind of meshed the data that we know exists with our problem and found exactly the data we want, which was the barley price index. And we've learned how to make a very simple line graph in Excel. And then we've learned how to interpret that graph in the context of our business research question and in kind of the context of our business in general. So I've been through these ideas of shape, trend, and future, I guess. That's a good way to remember it. So shape, trend, future. I'll see you in the next module.